Hey, it's Hugh Hewitt, and when I want to know what's going on with the Cavs, the Browns, and the Tribe, I tune into Sports Fix.
You love sports, and you know a lot. Your friends keep telling you, you should totally start a podcast. Well, it's time you listened and checked out Spreaker.com. People just like you have made their dreams a reality at Spreaker.com. For example, Jerry J-Rocc Myers started a Cleveland sports show called The Sports Fix, and now he has thousands of listeners. J-Rocc rocks, and so do you. Start your own podcast today at Spreaker.com. It's easy and free. That's SPREAKER.com.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Hey guys, J-Rocc here from The Sports Fix, and we always talking about using our platform to try to help the world and the society we live in, and everywhere I go and everywhere we go, bullying is one of the problems in today's society. There's nothing worse than any person, big or small, strong or weak, adult or child, feeling picked on, pushed around, vulnerable, and victimized at the hands of a bully. Change comes one person at a time, and my good friends at No Such Thing as a Bully are working on skills and techniques and ways that we can all change and make things better for everyone. Find out more at nosuchthingasabully.com.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Catch every UFC pay-per-view live in full HD at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Welcome in, everybody. We are live on the air, off and running. Hump Day, midweek edition of the Sports Fix, and off we go. J-Rocc here with you, and we're going to kick things off. I'll tell you, sometimes it just things, life works out crazy. I'm sitting here show prepping this morning, and Dan Wismar is going to join us here in a little bit. We have got so much to get into, and I'll tell you what, must be the springtime, whatever it is. Allergy, something has hit me. My eyes have been on fire all morning here with whatever, some type of allergies. It's driving me nuts. And as you know, needing to talk, I've got all of these things in front of me to read. And literally, as I dry my eyes in between paragraphs doing show prep this morning, I'm like, boy, it is what it is. Kind of like the Indians. It is what it is. And you run into unexpected circumstances. Boy, did opening day get botched up for the Tribe in every way possible. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. I'm not trying to pile on the pile, but it didn't work out well in any stretch of the imagination. Good thing there's 161 more of those things to go, but the Indians had a rough one with their one guaranteed full house of the season, and we'll get into it. But as you know, or may not know, but if you were there, perhaps Monday, opening day canceled due to the weather that never really quite turned out to be what I guess they anticipated it would be, and instead we get switched to a Tuesday. People are up in arms. I mean, schedules change. There's a lot of logistics that go into that, and I get it that the Indians wanted to give the best experience to the fans weather-wise, but the Tuesday weather wasn't that much better than the Monday weather. You were going to be playing in the cold either way. Set a record, actually, with the coldest Indians opening day. But, yeah, opening day didn't turn out to be quite the party that it should be. And then opening day part 2 didn't work out very well because of what happened on the field. And we're going to talk Tribe as they get things started. As I mentioned, Dan Wismar is going to be with us here in just a little bit to talk more about that. Still a whole season to go, guys, but it was definitely a choppy start for things for the Indians. We're going to talk about that. End of things. We're talking about starts for the Indians. March Madness, boy, it came in and went out with a bang. Buzzer beater. Villanova wins the national championship. What a way to end that thing. We're going to get into it. I'll announce the winner as well in a moment of the Sports Fix March Madness Tournament Challenge and who's going to get that Cleveland Sports prize pack. We're going to talk all kinds of things. Cavaliers in playoff mode. Are they? I mean, they're beating the crap out of some crappy teams. That's for sure. Doing what they need to do. Last night, I mean, the Bucks, hell of a victory. If you look at the stats, I mean, Kevin Love, and you got to feel good about how Kevin Love and J.R. Smith are playing heading into the playoffs. As well, LeBron James taking it up a notch as he did last year heading into the playoffs. But Kevin Love, J.R. Smith going to be huge. Both of them with big games last night. But a lot of people going nuts. And this is the thing. When the Cavs beat up on certain teams in certain ways, it looks so impressive. Last night's victory against the Bucks looks so impressive. Put a slight different sheen on the outside. The Bucks are the absolute worst three-point defending team and have the worst differential between the number of three-pointers that they make and their opposition makes in each game. So it was custom made for what the Cavs did. Now, being able to go out there and do what you need to do is a huge part of winning a championship. I'm not going to undercount that part of it, but man, I want to see what happens when we get down to the stretch of whatever the meat of the Eastern is going to be, and then the NBA Finals, the real nut-cutting time for the teams that are the cream of the crop, because that's where the Cavs are going to get separated. And I think the Cavs are a very good team. I don't know if they have that championship level. I mean, they look good against bad teams. They look good against mediocre teams. They play up and down, and right now they're on a trend up. And as I said, the Love and the Smith, those guys getting going, that's key every bit as much. Now, LeBron's going to do his thing. He's going to go out there and get his points one way or the other. He's going to get his involvement in the game in all facets, touching the ball. But well, you know what? We'll have Bruce in the chat room jumping in already with some interesting information. And we'll get into more about the Cavs here once Dan gets in, once we get this conversation rolling. Are they in peak mode heading into the playoffs? Are they feasting on some bad teams here? I mean, how do you feel heading into the NBA playoffs? Just 4 regular season games remaining. Speaking of that, the Golden State Warriors last night, if you missed it, knocked off in overtime by the Minnesota Timberwolves of all teams. And now the Warriors have backed themselves into a corner. They've got 4 games left, and they've got to win all 4 to set the NBA record of the Chicago Bulls and the most wins in an NBA season. And 2 of those games are against the San Antonio Spurs, the other 2 against the Memphis Grizzlies. They have a back and forth against those 2 teams to end the season. So we'll find out. Was it all for nothing? Because to me, I mean, that's going to be an interesting tale to tell. Talk about the Cavs resting guys heading into the playoffs and teams getting ready. Golden State, they're deep. They're deep as can be for a reason. That's why they're a championship team. That's why they head into this as the favorites once again to defend their championship. But playing it out to the hilt, running out the string, having to give it all to chase that record. It'll be very interesting. Now, obviously, when the Bulls did it, it didn't stop them from finishing matters off. May not affect the Golden State Warriors either, but perhaps it will. It'll be interesting to see how much of a toll perhaps that takes on the Warriors, or is it the opposite? Are they so humming along? Are they so red hot that they just roll right into the playoffs? I will say this. I'm one of the few people that said it at the beginning of the season. Stick with it now, even if the Warriors set the record. I still think the Spurs are the team coming out of the West to face the Cavaliers or whomever else it would be. It's going to be the Spurs. I think they have laid low as the best second-place team in NBA history in a conference, and they're going to come up and surprise everybody and knock off the Warriors. But anyways, we'll get into all of that with Dan Wismar. Browns cut Dante Whitner, and I'll tell you what, they could have done it a little bit earlier into free agency. A lot of teams already start making their moves. You would have figured, matter of fact, Carlos Dansby said once you get past the first couple days, you got to figure you're good because the team wouldn't wait, string you out, and then cut you loose. Wrong. The Browns did do just that. We're going to get into all of those things, open up the phones and more. Let's rock and roll, baby. It is time once again to launch the Sports Fix. I am your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone. Feeling good here today. Hopefully you guys as well are as you join me here across the Sports Fix radio network. Maybe you're listening live on TuneIn, TuneIn's radio apps on Worldwide, Spreaker, Mixler, their mobile apps, and digital applications. Perhaps you're enjoying the show live on our home base, thesportsfix.net. Bookmark it if you haven't. It is the home base for all things Sports Fix. It's got our sponsor banners on there. Make sure you check those guys out because without them, we can't do this here. every week, every time we get the opportunity to do this free of charge for you. We have a great time, and it's thanks to them. So check out thesportsfix.net as well. Shout out to the thousands of you guys around the world listening daily on iHeartRadio and iTunes, the world's largest internet radio providers, on Stitcher Radio, on CarPlay, all of the places that you guys feed, subscribe, download, do all the things to get you fixed. Thank you so much for doing it. As I say all the time, you guys are the heart and soul of the Sports Fix. Phones are open, 216-539-7535, 216-539-7535, the number to call. Facebook, Twitter, email, jamming, facebook.com/thesportsfix, and make sure you like the page while you're there. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix, CLE. Email us, thesportsfix at AOL.com, facebook.com/The Sports Fix, Twitter at The Sports Fix, CLE. You can tweet me personally at J-Rocc Daddy, JROCC DADDY. Email The Sports Fix at AOL.com. While you're there, make sure you like, friend, follow, all of those things on the social media platforms. Join the over 25,000 social media followers of the Sports Fix. And speaking of followers and listeners and audience and all of that good stuff, let's lead right into it. Before we rock and roll anywhere else, let's talk NCAA March Madness, and I think we've even got a little matter of a prize pack to give away as the NCAA tournament wrapped up in unbelievable fashion the other night. Talk about what's the famous line, one shining moment? Tell you what, Chris Jenkins had one shining moment as on a game that is tied at 74 with 4 seconds remaining. The ball's brought up court. I don't know what North Carolina was doing on defense because they allowed North Carolina to hit an absolutely beautiful pass down the court. I mean, the shooter couldn't have had a better opportunity to set history, and that is exactly what Chris Jenkins did as he went out there and hit the shot that took care of the national championship for Villanova.
With Archie the uphill, 3 seconds at midcourt. Jenkins gives it to Jenkins. The championship.
That was the audio right there. Chris Jenkins hit that shot to give Villanova the national championship, 77-74. I had Nova in the title game, baby. That actually saved my bracket as far as our contest goes, moved me up from the bottom to the middle, kind of like a Drake song. Started from the bottom, now I'm 13. Hey, man, that's good enough. But, hey, the tournament is over, and everybody, what a finish. Not just in the actual March Madness, but how about in the NCAA March Madness Challenge, brought to you by the Sports Fix and FantasyJocks.com. First, second, and third place in this year's tournament challenge, separated by 60 points. Evor Plus, the Evor Plus, finished third with 1,000 points. Justin McMahon finished second with 1,020. And congratulations to the winner of the 2016 Sports Fix Tournament Challenge and the Cleveland Sports Prize Pack, including copies of Cleveland's Finest, autographed by Super Joe Charbonneau, former Cleveland Indians American League Rookie of the Year, and LeBron James, Redemption of the King, both by our own Cleveland author, Vince McKee, as well as a couple of other random goodies here. J.L. Standridge is the winner, 1,060 points. He pulled out the victory at the end, and nobody, by the way, had Villanova winning the tournament. It was 0 for our entire challenge. I did have Villanova losing to Michigan State in the championship game. Of course, Michigan State didn't cooperate very well on the front end of that, but it was a heck of a tournament. Thanks to all of you guys that played once again this year. Can't wait to do it again next year. Thanks to everybody, and congratulations to J.L. Standridge, who won this bad boy. We have contacted him off the air and we will hook them up with the Cleveland Sports Prize Pack. As I said, on the back of Villanova in their final victories there down the stretch. They pushed me up from down to the bottom. I finished 13th place, right in the middle of this thing, and that's just good enough to not be embarrassed and walk away with my head held high. Can't wait for next year, guys, and the next contest that we break out here on the Sports Fix. Thanks to you guys for being a part of it. And again, thanks to everybody that helps make that happen behind the scenes as well. As we wrap up another Sports Fix NCAA March Madness Tournament Challenge. Speaking of wrapping up the tournament, how about the girls' side of the bracket? UConn not only rolls. Were they ever even challenged? They not only may have won yet another championship, but it may have been one of the most dominant runs I've ever seen. But how about, I mean, could you imagine going to college for 4 straight years, playing ball, and winning 4 national championships in a row? Because that's exactly what has now happened to the freshman class 4 years ago for the UConn Huskies, as they just keep on rolling. Double-digit title victories now for them, 4 in a row, and it stops no time soon. I don't know. I mean, that's got to be up there. That's up there with the I think it's even stronger than UCLA in the middle 70s as far as just an absolute stranglehold on the entire sport by one program. I mean, man, it's going to be years. I saw something a couple of weeks ago. I was watching, I think it was on ESPN, but about how UConn's not only dominating the UConn women, but they have the best recruiting classes coming up as well. They're gobbling up all of the best girls basketball talent around the country. I mean, why not? Where else would you want to go? If you were a girls high school or youth basketball player right now, where would you? I'm pretty sure everybody wants to go to UConn right about now. Hey, man, 4 championships in 4 years is a good goal to shoot for. But they're not only at the peak, but they just keep refilling the coffers with the best of the best. That thing is going to be something to be seen when that streak finally does get snapped, because they look to just be getting stronger and stronger. But that's it. March Madness rolls into April. April showers for us Indians fans, but it rolls into, well, more like April frozen than April showers this week. But anyways, rolls into April, ends the season. It was a hell of a lot of fun, and I cannot wait till we get back to March and do it all again. It's only a few months till training camps start, guys, so enjoy the summer, and then the hoop season will be back before we know it. We'll be talking to Coach Waters. We'll be getting ready for it. Another college basketball season. Again, congratulations to our winner. Thanks, you guys, for participating in this year's Sports Fix Challenge. Speaking of participating, you should all get an award of participation, everybody that showed up on Tuesday for the Cleveland Indians opener Take 2. And we're going to get into this more with Dan Wismar here in just a minute. I'll get the break out of the way. We'll bring you guys a news update, and I'll get Dan in on the conversation. We'll start talking some Tribes, some Cavs, Browns, lots of things to get into. But the Indians opening day did not go well for them. And this is not, as I said earlier, an opportunity just to bash the Cleveland Indians, which is a fashionable thing to do. But they really did. They got dealt an awkward set of circumstances. Perhaps they played their hand a little bit off, and it ended up with just a bad set of circumstances. The Cleveland Indians basically were dealt with the situation on Monday, opening day against the Boston Red Sox, where it was pretty doggone cold. There were expected flurries and snow to come in sometime in the mid-afternoon to late or early evening hours. So all day it was a will this happen or will it not happen as far as Cleveland Indians opening day. And they had the buffer of an open Tuesday in case they needed it to reschedule the game, which is the smart way to plan things here in Cleveland. We get that. Although then again, I say starting the season in Cleveland, especially the way the weather has changed in our world and the seasons have moved up a bit, there's got to be a way to set the schedules to where the first couple of weeks, these East Coast teams, these Midwest teams start in the warm weather markets until everything warms up. I just think logistically that's got to be a better way to go than because even if when you do play it, it's not a good environment for the fans or the players. You're not seeing the players at their best, but you're the fans sitting in football weather watching baseball. I mean, I love baseball as much as the next guy, but baseball is a slow-moving sport. Baseball is a patient man sport, and that's great. But a patient man's sport is not as appreciated in the 30-degree weather as a fast-moving football game. You know what I'm saying? That's just the realities of it. At least there's a lot more movement. It's a lot harder to stay warm when the game's taking a while to do its thing. So it's just baseball's not behooved by cold weather. Same thing on the back end of the season, by the way. They drag it all the way into freaking November, and it's about to start snowing again on the back end. It's not optimal. But either way, that's neither here nor there. So going back to opening day, about 1 o'clock, I believe it was, Terry Francona's presser, he's talking and says they had plans on playing the game. So at 1 o'clock, which is 3 hours before the game is set to start, the manager of the team said that they anticipate getting the game in. So at that point, you've got to think a lot of people have confirmed the thoughts that this is going to happen. They've headed downtown. They've begun parking, which I was told the gouging was at an Indians all-time high. $30, $40 lots all over the place for opening day. A lot of people took off work, took the kids off school, made the pilgrimage. This is a rite of passage, baby. This is opening day. Went down there, parked in the expensive lots, because you know everything's at a premium on opening day. The outside establishments, the beers are a few cents more, the burgers are $1 more, the parking's $15, $20 more. Everything's at an opening day premium, including opening day, which is where I will get on the Indians here in a minute for their initial attempts to make things up with the fans. There is a value, I would say, based on Indians' attendance, that opening day is 4 times as valuable to me as any other game in the Indian season based on the amount of attendance, the amount of demand for the game, the ticket prices, all of that stuff on the secondary market. At least 3-4 times more valuable than the average Indians game is. So it's a high value thing, and everybody takes advantage of that, which is what happens. It's like when the Cavs go to the playoffs, everything gets more expensive around it. That's where you make your money after the long season grind. Got it. Okay, but you've now got a lot of people invested in coming down here, being a part of the festivities. Remember, opening day festivities don't just start at 4 o'clock. They're all over the place down there. So a lot of people come down. Less than 90 minutes after the Indians say they anticipate playing the game, they announced that they're going to postpone the game. It was about 20 after 2 in the afternoon. So about an hour and 40 minutes before first pitch was scheduled to happen on this one, the Indians canceled the game and announced it's rescheduled for Tuesday. Fans were up in arms, especially when you realize that maybe the Indians misplayed the weather part of things, because by 7 o'clock, the anticipated snow had still not materialized in the area. And basically, the Indians played Tuesday in a game just about exactly the same as they would have played on Monday. It was still ice cold Arctic temperatures. The Indians set a record for the coldest temperatures in opening day history for the Indians. It was 34 degrees, 26 with the wind chill when the Indians went out there and threw the opening pitches in yesterday's game. That is amazingly cold for a baseball. I remember being out there for, and I can't remember the season, might have been 13, or the one with the Toronto season opener that was just frozen and took forever, and it went into extra innings, and it just would not end, and it was so cold. That one was brutal, and there were no fans left by the time it was there. And I remember the one against Chicago where they got clubbed in the cold a couple of years ago as well. That was about 5-6 years ago. But anyways, so you end up with a situation where, to sum it all up, you played in almost identical situations, except you now were playing on a Tuesday. You ended up with at least 10 to 15,000 less fans in the building. There was about 22,000 actual fans in the building for opening day part 2, and that is nowhere near the 36,000 that would have been there, plus the standing room only that would have been there on Monday. So again, you cost yourself 10 to 15,000 fans and a lot of goodwill, because initially the Indians only announced allowing fans to trade the ticket for another game within the months of April and May. And to me, that was a big mistake. Because you're totally not valuing opening day. I mean, again, I said I think it's at least 4 times as valuable as any other game. But we're not even talking about any other game later in the season. They only were allowing people to choose between April and May. So to me, you really that was bad, and especially with the value of opening day. And again, I'm not even talking about the secondary money that people spent on Monday to find out that the game wasn't happening. Indians quickly thought about it and changed their mind and came up with an enhanced policy in the evening hours of Monday. And basically then what they allowed people to do was either trade their opening day ticket for a ticket for Tuesday, opening day part 2, and one other game in the months of April or May. Or if they couldn't make Tuesday's opener, which it appears about 15,000 people couldn't, they can trade their ticket now for 2 games in the months of April and May to make up for it. To me, still not. You're never going to replace the value of opening day, because right now, until the Indians start packing the ballpark on a regular basis, there's just always going to be more value in that. So the Indians wouldn't have been able to make everybody happy no matter what. I think they did a better job the second time. I think that they rushed to cancel the game. And I just, to me, simple. I mean, to me, it was, even on Monday, looking at it, it was, what good does it do you to cancel it? It's going to be exactly the same tomorrow. Now, had there been precipitation, then that would have been the right call. I think that when the snow didn't materialize, the Indians realized, man, we just canceled this game for pretty much no reason, because we're going to deal with the same thing tomorrow. And we kind of bungled our big opening day home crowd. So, that being said, I'm not here to pile on the Indians. I absolutely think they could have done it better. I think that they got dealt a bad hand and they panicked a bit and made it worse. I think they made it worse on themselves. And then when they actually played the game, striking out 15 times, and David Price, he went to town. He already owns the Indians, and he showed why. He just went ahead and re-signed that lease yesterday as he went to town on the Tribe. And we'll get into the game here in a minute. We got a break coming up here. We'll get Dan Wismar in. We'll talk X's and O's. But that was the situation for the Tribe. As I said, luckily they've got 161 more of these things to go, and the race is on from there. Let's take a break, and the race is on to get Dan Wismar on the show and in the conversation. Well, I'm going to see what he thinks about opening day, what happened, how the Indians handled it, and the actual game. Let's talk about it. Corey Kluber, David Price. What an opening day matchup that one is, sitting on the hill. We'll talk Tribe. Cavs getting ready for the playoffs. Are they beating up on bums, or are they ready to beat up on everyone? We'll talk all of that, March Madness, Browns, and more with the man, Dan Wismar from Everybody Hates Cleveland. Dan will join us next after we get you the news update and get right back here on the Sports Fix. Don't go anywhere and keep in the conversation. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Twitter @The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Cavs playoffs are back in the saddle. Tribe's back in the saddle. And so is Dan Wismar. Back in the saddle when we come back after the news here on the Sports Fix, baby.
There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball.
Throwing you the best sports commentary in town. The Sports Fix.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
There's heritage, and then there's birthright, the passing down of important things. We're talking about something deeper than nostalgia. we are proud. The C is for Cleveland and courage and comeback. No matter who we are before, when we put it on, we stand on common ground. This season, it's about unfinished business. Get ready. Here comes the Tribe.
I'm Little Teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Yeah. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com. No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD.
Kyrie split to D, goes inside, teardrops it home right down Euclid.
That's way up in there for two.
The excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials.
And now,
fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens.
Let's get it all!
And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger.
They sure are good.
Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious.
Hey there, eat up, y'all. You's as good church-going folk. Y'all deserve a little treat.
What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd. Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. They had already won the national championship 10 times. They had already gone undefeated 6 times. But this undefeated season, this time the UConn Huskies did something which they had not done before. Their 82-51 win over Syracuse last night gave them an unprecedented 4th consecutive NCAA women's title and the 11th title for Coach Gino Auriemma.
I've never been around a better group of great players that really, really, really love the game, appreciate the game, love their teammates, and they've done something that obviously has never been done before, ever.
Breanna Stewart was named the most outstanding player at the Final Four for the 4th time. The Warriors' quest to break the NBA record of 72 wins is suddenly in jeopardy. A stunning 124-117 overtime loss at home to 26-52 Minnesota means they must win all 4 of the remaining games to break the record. Former South African tennis player Bob Hewitt expelled from the Tennis Hall of Fame this morning because of his conviction on 2 counts of rape and 1 count of sexual assault.
Sports Center is brought to you by Golfsmith. No matter what your average score is, the Master Club fitters at Golfsmith can lower it. Improve your consistency and accuracy. Get fit for the right clubs for you at Golfsmith. Anything for golf.
This is Josh Tomlin of the Cleveland Indians, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Thank you for calling the Sports Fix. May I ask who's calling?
Dark Helmet. I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
So what does that make you to the show?
Absolutely nothing.
Call the Sports Fix, even if you have nothing to say at all.
So wide you can't get around it.
So low you can't get under it.
So high you can't get over it. Can't get over it. When you're not here, we come getting down on which
Welcome back to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc back with you live. Dan Wismar on the hotline joining me in just a second as we get rolling. Thank you guys for being with us on TuneIn, Spreaker, Mixler, all the different places that you joined us on thesportsfix.net. Hit us up. Speaking of joining us, join us on social media. Join in the conversation. We're talking March Madness. What did you think of that buzzer beater victory? Cavs, are they in playoff mode or are they just beating up on some bad teams? Indians, what about opening day? All of that. Let me know your thoughts. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Twitter @TheSportsFix. CLE. Email TheSportsFix @AOL.com. Can't call the phones because my man, Dan Wismar, is on the hotline right now. And in just a moment, I'm going to let him join the show. Let's try now. Dan, how you feeling today?
Not too bad, J-Rocc. It sounds like you pulled out all the whole archive of Sports Fix promos to play for us today. That's great.
Yeah. How you doing, my man?
Oh, I'm doing fine. The basketball's been great, and obviously Monday night, as you said, was just a spectacular finish. A lot of people thought the tournament was not so spectacular this year, but I liked it wire to wire. Now, obviously, our two semifinal games weren't that competitive, and some of the one seeds bowing out in the Elite Eight was disappointing to certain people. But I thought the tournament was everything you hoped for this year. Lots of buzzer beaters in the early rounds, and obviously it ended with high drama. But yeah, everything's cool with me, other than the try drop in the opener. I mean, that could have gone better, but it's a 161 to go.
Yeah, well, I want to get into that with you in just a moment. I think anytime you've got a winner. Now, there were some people that had Villanova winning the thing. They were I would say they were in the list of 6 to 8 favorites, but they were at the bottom part of that 6 to 8 for sure. So you always like to see a team that wasn't necessarily expected to win do it. And yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was a good tournament. I'll tell you what. I go back to the women's side. I was talking about it before the break, and I just heard it during the news thing again. I mean, UConn is first off, what they do is amazing as it is. But I'm telling you, I just saw something maybe a week or two ago on some special about them talking about how if you think that they've got it locked up now, they have all the best girls coming there for the next few years. They're lined up. They're turning them away, the best of the best, to be the next classes at UConn. So it's potential that thing could go another decade.
Yeah, you're right. And of course, the same thing happens with Calipari and Krzyzewski and those programs, too. They always skim the cream of the crop of high school basketball talent in the country because of the allure of the program's reputation. I saw an interesting thing the other day when a former coach was interviewed. Actually, the occasion the reason I was watching it was because my friend Marcus Hartman, who writes for Buckeye Sports Bulletin and who covers the girls' team for Ohio State, women's team, I should say, and women's basketball in general, was being interviewed on an Outside the Lines episode by Bob Lee and about whether or not the UConn dominance is a good thing for the sport. And just in general, when you know who's going to win, it's not all that compelling to tune in and watch. And there's a certain case to be made for that. But they also had a women's coach on, and I can't recall who it was, to be honest, but she rattled off the list of all the other women's basketball dynasties. In other words, this is not the first time around.
Tennessee,
and basically her point was basically enjoy it while it lasts, because it doesn't last forever. And she went through a bunch of names, people that I'd even forgotten about, from Louisiana Tech to Delta State to, of course, Tennessee and the long run that they had of dominance in women's basketball. And so, you might think, hey, this could go on forever, but, it won't. And, Gina or Emma will retire and someone else will build a program up and this too shall pass. So it was a good reminder that there have been other, dynasties, even in women's college basketball, just in the last few decades, and we tend to forget about it. It's sort of along the lines of what we talk about so often about how, romancing the present to the exclusion of the past.
Absolutely. I'm 100% in agreement, and I like to see greatness as it is. I think you mentioned those coaches in the men's ranks. They get the top recruits, too. I think that's what I like the most, is that it's one thing to have the talent and then to be able to have the results with it as well. And again, somebody will top. I mentioned it to me. Even you bring up those other programs, and I remember the Tennessee and Pat Summitt, because that was during my formative years. They were dominating women's basketball. But I mean, even if you look at the men's game in the 70s, UCLA, and a program like that just for several years was just the absolute epitome. Eventually somebody comes along, but this is definitely something to remember if you're a sports fan, if you're a basketball fan, and you saw that, because it's one. And hell, to go a whole freshman class can say we never lost a game, we never lost a championship, we just ran the table our whole college career. That's unheard of.
It is kind of amazing, and you mentioned UCLA, of course, and that was back in the day when they didn't have freshman eligibility, so at least if I recall. And so I believe that Gino Auriemma now has 11 titles, which puts him, I think, one ahead of John Wooden. John Wooden had, but no one will ever touch 7 in a row. 7 in a row is 7 in a row.
But they're at 4. They're at 4.
And I think 9 out of 10. Yeah, they've got 4, granted. And sure, they could win a few more. But still, the UCLA streak, Lou Alcindor, Bill Walton, back-to-back, 3 and 3, and then a 7th one. That was the most incredible run ever, and is impossible, literally, I shouldn't say literally, to do today. Just so wildly improbable that it will never happen again. That one program will dominate like that and win the championship 7 straight times.
Tell you guys,
that's sort of one of those untouchable records, like Cy Young's 511 victories. I mean, just no way it's happening in the modern era.
You know what I feel, honestly, is you bring that up and just mention some of those names, and you think of how stacked. And this reminds me, because I was thinking of stuff like this during the tournament, because you watch ESPN Classic and different shows about the older tournament runs of different teams and stuff, and it's you're inundated with that stuff in the month of March, and we talk about it, how different, and the game, it's all to the NBA now. The college guys just come because they have to, and they roll out, and the college game is absolutely different than it used to be. But you look, even into the 90s, at the lineups on the college teams, the good ones, the great ones, the mediocre ones. Some of them are all-star teams of future NBA players, and or even just journeyman NBA players, but they're so deep with so many names. And one of the things, not just the whole nostalgic, it was different in this era, but one of the things I think the kids in the generation today, fan-wise, are being cheated out of is the college portion of players' rivalries with each other over the years, because back in the day you used to have, Bird and Magic's a great one just because it's a big name one that everybody knows, but their rivalry started in college and had a big backstory there and then carried over into the NBA. And you just think back to, and I remember just talking to my son about stuff and going, boy, I remember watching those guys go at it in college and then again in the NBA. And I think that's another layer of things that people are missing. Plus, obviously, the changes it made to the game, but you don't have that either. But think back to those teams. As you just mentioned, the couple of big names, like having Kareem and Walton on the same team. But, those college teams were so deep back then. Obviously, it's different, but it's fun to look back sometimes. But really, do you think of it that way, too? I miss having that college end where guys would have a couple of years against each other, whether they played for Duke in North Carolina or whatever it was. And then that would carry over into the NBA, and you'd be like, man, these guys have been duking it out for 10, 15 years.
Yeah, that's true. And, of course, we remember the big final game of Bird and Magic playing against each other. And they went on. Of course, that was not a multi-year, college experience.
No,
it was a one-time thing in the tournament, and they met in the final game, and that's what everyone remembers. I go back to, my 3 years of high school, 10, 11, and 12th grade, were Lou Alcindor's 3 years at UCLA. 67, 68, 69, or whatever.
That's the run right there.
Off by 1 year. And then Bill Walton came in after that. But, everybody knew Lou Alcindor from when he was in high school because he was the most talked about high school player ever. Power Memorial in New York City and the next big thing. So even when he was a high school player and coming into UCLA, everybody knew who he was, at least crazies like me that followed sports so religiously as a high school kid and a junior high kid. But you're right. That's what is missing today, following a guy through a 3 or 4 year now college career. And so by the time he gets to the NBA, you've seen him play, and you've seen him in multiple NCAA tournaments, and you've seen him maybe win a couple of titles, and that's pretty much gone, because not only do the same players not get to that point in the tournament back-to-back years, just because it's so damn hard to do that, but in so many cases nowadays, the great players are one and done and on to the NBA where they either sink or swim. Some of the games. This game sent everybody back to, memory lane to try to talk about, okay, what were the games that were as good as this, or does this top? To me, it tops the game-winning shots of, say, Michael Jordan, which was not a buzzer beater.
Right, there was still time left. Yeah,
it was the winning points. And then Keith Smart, I believe, 87 for Indiana, who won the tournament with a shot. But again, it was not in the air as the buzzer was going off. The only thing comparable to me is Lorenzo Charles, Valvano, put back the air ball by Witherspoon, I think it was, or Sidney Lowe, whoever shot it. Lorenzo Charles basically puts in an air ball at the buzzer to win the game over the great Houston team.
Oh yeah, was that 85
in 83? So
83,
that to me is the only one that. And I was thinking about Valvano too, because everybody remembers the scene of Valvano racing onto the court, looking for someone to hug and kind of not being able to find anybody. And I thought that Jay Wright had the anti-Valvano reaction. If there was an opposite to the Jim Valvano reaction to the game-winning buzzer beater, national title-winning buzzer beater, that was it. Sort of did the Joey Bosa shrug kind of thing, and emotionless. Did the classy thing and started walking down looking for Roy Williams to shake his hand. And just the contrast was striking there. But one of the great, obviously one of the great finishes of all time in the tournament. And I was at home jumping up and down, yelling, screaming. I was pulling for Villanova, even though it had no bearing on any of my brackets by that point.
And once again, I think of Roy Williams and what he said right before in the presses before the game, and how like he was talking about letting down some of his other teams that didn't win the championship, and how it was a shame because of the talent they had, and everybody was. To me, this is in part right along with what we're talking about the changes in college basketball. This is it, because Villanova, much more of a team, and then you had the stronger favorite, and yet it was Villanova that pulled it out at the end, and there you go. By the way, you brought up Valvano, Survive and Advance. That's another one of the great 30 for 30
documentaries. Yeah, no doubt. That's a good one. Yeah, I have not yet seen, by the way, speaking of 30 for 30s, the Duke lacrosse, rape story. Have not seen that one yet. It's definitely one that I'm looking forward to. I've seen it's been on a few times. I just haven't had 2 hours to devote to it. But that's a classic series, and I love watching all of them.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen the Believe Land one yet either, to be honest with you. I did not rush out to watch that one. Hell, we've lived through the majority of it as it is. So I will see it, but I haven't gotten to that. And, yeah, the Duke lacrosse one. I've probably seen a half an hour or so of it, but I have not been able to sit through the entire thing just yet, and that's one that I want to sit down and dive into, too. I love those. I've probably seen, I don't know, maybe 75% of them. There's still a list that I haven't got to yet, but did you see the Believe Land one?
They've been showing the USFL one lately because it features Trump so prominently.
That's a great one. Small Potatoes. Well, plus, if you have Netflix, they're all... If you have Netflix, just go on your search and type in 30. You don't even got to go any further. Just type in the number 30, and there's about 20 or 25 of them on Netflix that you can binge watch as well.
Yeah, that's good to know. I did not realize that, but I'll have to go do that. I wouldn't mind watching that USFL one again.
The USFL one is great because you realize, number one, how much they were onto something, because they really were by playing in the off season of football. They really were. And plus, the difference between the USFL, and this is a whole different topic, but then, and you know this, but the difference between that and the World League and the XFL and all of these other ones that they tried is the USFL was NFL players. These were quality college players. This was all guys that came in to, hell, the Browns took advantage of the USFL going out of business as good as anybody did in the NFL. But that's what made it great. They had all the top. They were willing to pay. They got the quarterbacks. They were going after. They got into a bidding war with players, and the USFL could ball. It wasn't until Trump and really he kind of took control of that thing and pushed it into the fall and tried to go head up with the NFL that he screwed up a good thing, because had they kept on the trajectory they were on, the USFL had a shot to really battle with the NFL back and forth. There could very well have been a decade-plus long war for talent between these two, but they made a huge mistake and tried to go into actual play in the same season as the NFL, and that's stupid. Why would you go do that,
Yeah, they did make some strategic blunders, but yeah, and you're right, the players loved it because they were driving up the dollars salary,
right,
signing Herschel Walker and signing Brian Sipe, the NFL,
and getting guaranteed money,
and all these guys. All kinds of players were going over for the cash, and yeah, you're right. But anyway, like you say, we're off topic on that. But
who cares, man?
Yeah, who cares? But I tournament I thought this year was as good as it always is, and nobody can kick about the tournament being less than advertised, because it always kind of tends to live up to the hype.
Absolutely. All right, Dan Wismar, J-Rocc, we're doing the thing, and let's switch over because I do want to talk to you about the Indians. We'll talk a little bit here before we talk some Cavs opening day. Let's not talk about the game. Let's talk about opening day part one. I don't know how much you heard at the beginning, and again, I was not just sitting here like everybody, I hate the Indians, and the Dolans did it again. I do think that they were trying to anticipate the weather. No matter what, it didn't work out well on Monday for the Indians, because they ended up canceling a game that most likely didn't need to be canceled, simply because the anticipated weather didn't come in, and Tuesday's weather ended up being pretty much exactly the same as Monday's weather would have been anyway. A little bit clearer sky, but the degrees was no warmer at all. But, what did you think? My thing is I think where they messed up was having Terry Francona address the issue and then an hour later going back. Because if he had not said that they were going to get this thing in, then I think maybe less people would have, that's an hour, that's 2 hours before the festivities begin. At that point, when you hear from the manager, you're thinking this thing's probably a good shot. A lot of people headed down there. And I'm not so mad about the game. Obviously, they get tickets to another game, although the value's not the same. But, man, getting gouged, that was the biggest thing we got hit with, was listeners who went to the game and paid big money parking lots and stuff to find out that they had to turn around and go home, or they took the day off work, and then, of course, they couldn't take the next day off of work and all of that. Plus, most people said, I don't care what games you give me in April or May, it's not the same as opening day. Now, that I agree with, but there's no game right now in the Indians' regular season that's the same as opening day. That's a no-win situation for the Tribe.
First of all, Jerry, and that's where I part company with many fans. There is nothing necessarily more special about opening day to me than there is to any other game. In fact, I think I mentioned to you that I traded out of that game.
Yes.
My wife had a little bit of a conflict, but as much as anything else, it's, do I really want to go down there in 30-degree weather, spend $30-40 to park my car, walk a mile, whatever it is? It's harder than hell to find a spot in the first place in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday in downtown Cleveland when all the workers are using up their normal parking places. So, in other words, it didn't have that same appeal to me. It doesn't have a higher value than any other game to me, but I understand that it does for a lot of folks. The biggest crime, I think, of the whole thing is the parking debacle. How the parking operators basically took off with your money, and there were a lot of people that were ticked off. There was stories on the news about people chasing down the parking lot operators who were literally running away from the people that had parked their cars with their money, people that were trying to get their money back. So that's not a good look.
Hold on. You got to back up.
Yeah.
Say that again now. You mean they realize the game's canceled, so they come back and the guys are running like, no, nobody's getting their money back.
Exactly right. And
that's awful.
And again, when you park your car, it's to park your car. It's not to park your car and make sure that the game happens. So I understand. I mean, I kind of get it from the standpoint of the parking lot operator. There's no refunds, no returns, but that didn't mean that people weren't ticked off when they go back maybe at 2:30 in the afternoon after the game's been called, and here's the parking lot operator sitting on their $40 and says, no, sorry, no refund. But anyway, I did hear Antonetti explaining to Tom Hamilton early on in the radio broadcast of the opener yesterday all the processes that went into it, the decisions that were made, how they sat down with the Red Sox management and the Red Sox people, and with Major League Baseball people, and with the umpires, and with the weatherman, and a cast of thousands to try to work the thing out, and obviously with the intent of trying to get the baseball game played. I find no fault with the Cleveland Indians front office for what they did or how they did it. It's weather. They didn't have God on speed dial. They couldn't do the thing there to make sure that it was or was not going to snow, and they wanted to avoid injury. And you and I both know that they would have been criticized had they gone ahead and played the game, because some people are going to criticize you either way. So I just got nothing on that in terms of criticism for the club. They consulted with the people involved and made their best call and chose from a list of all bad options and went ahead and said, now, it also, I think, was strategically smart to come back and change the policy on the refund and give people essentially 2 games instead of 1. That makes sense because of the issue of the value that you talked about. Yes, the opener is worth more. In fact, obviously, if you bought the ticket on the open market, you paid more for it than you would for any other game. So we're going to give you 2 games instead of just replacing it with 1. So I think they went about as far as they could and within reason to accommodate people.
Let me jump in. One thing is, I didn't like that they limited it to April and May. I thought they could have opened it up perhaps to some other games, but that's either here nor there. You brought up something that I hadn't addressed, and I don't know if many people did. You brought up paying the high prices if you went through the secondary markets and stuff. Now, that's going to be tricky.
Not even just the secondary market. I mean, if you go online to the primary market during the 10 minutes that the tickets are on sale for the opener, you pay way more than you do for a normal game.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to make the point that it's not just the secondary market where you pay more.
Right, but this is going to get tricky for a lot of people depending on where they got their ticket, because the Indians actually noted in their agreement that if you bought your ticket through anybody other than the standard Indians outlets, if you bought it through StubHub, if you went through any third-party vendors, those people could only exchange their ticket for the Tuesday opener. They don't get any other opportunities at the secondary game. So if you didn't buy your ticket straight through the Indians, you could only come back on Tuesday. You could not get the choice of 2 games that all the other ones did. That one kind of got me a little bit, only because there's a lot of people that don't go wait by their computer for tickets to be available on Tuesday. They'll just jump on StubHub later on the afternoon and buy them. And that, to me, you still bought the tickets. I mean, that's a little iffy. But regardless, it is what it is. I would have opened it up to other games than perhaps just the ones that they did. But they really were, as we both said. It wasn't going to go well either way. And I remember I looked up, it was about 7 o'clock on Monday, and there were no flakes sprinkling. I said, damn, I bet the Indians are wishing they'd have just played this one right about now. And I'm sure they were, but hindsight is always 20/20.
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, there would have been people certainly that would have bitched either way, and all would have been better, and there wouldn't be near the criticism today if they'd just gone out yesterday and won the baseball game.
That's true. Let's jump into that. Now, obviously, you had the big matchup with Kluber and Price owns the Indians. He extended his lease again here this season as he just went out there and dominated 15 strikeouts, by the way. That I'll tell you, more than people being mad about opening day, I got hit up by people being mad that the Indians still can't hit. And I'm like, hey, it's just one game. But you can't argue with the results of the just one game because with the exception of that good inning that they put together to tie the thing at 2, the Indians did not look good behind the plate. They were flailing all over the place, and they got locked down as the game got locked down as well. I think they went hitless through the last 4 1/3 innings or something.
Yeah, I think that is right. That is what I heard. 1 for 16 or something or whatever going down the stretch.
Like that.
Yeah, what can you say? That's one of the reasons that Corey Kluber last year had a losing record, and that is that unlike the previous Cy Young year, he was going up against the other team's number ones, and there's a lot of good pitchers in the American League, and because when you're facing the other team's ace, you're not going to put up the kinds of win-loss percentages that you had the previous year or so. And I think, let's face it, Corey Kluber didn't pitch as well at times last year as he had in 14. He seemed to tire yesterday as well. And so anyway, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's just, David Price, best pitcher in the American League. I think that's pretty much a given. And that's what you're up against on opening day every year.
I think we now understand, not that you didn't, but I think there was some people that were sleeping on David Price maybe at this stage in his career. Boston didn't just throw monopoly money at him. There's a reason he just cashed in to the tune of, what was it, $210 million or something like that?
$30 million a year for 7 years. Yeah. So,
not bad if you can get it.
210, nice work if you can get it, right?
But he was disgusting yesterday. I mean, he went to work. He got 10 strikeouts against the Indians. And coming in, he was 9-2 with a 2.19 ERA against the Indians. And he is undefeated in his career at Progressive Field.
Still, yes.
Yeah, still.
And to be honest, the Red Sox had a miserable year last year, and they look formidable. I don't really know. I can't tell you. After Price and Clay Buchholz, they have Joe Kelly. I'm not sure who they have pitching-wise beyond those three guys. But that everyday lineup is damn good. I mean, Bogaerts is a coming star. Mookie Betts is a coming star.
Poppy can
Hanley
still
Ramirez
play.
Playing first base. David Ortiz. I almost said Mo Vaughn. David Ortiz, they've got a brutal lineup, and who knows whether these young kids they've got, Shaw and some of these other guys are going to pan out for them. But that's a pretty rugged everyday lineup they put on the field with Pedroia and everybody else. So they're to be reckoned with. I'm not sure how well the pitching will hold up, but they'll be a player in the East this year, I'm sure.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Poppy showed that he's not just going around the loop one more time and collecting his cars and trophies on the way around the circuit either, man. He nailed, man, there was no doubt about that shot in the ninth. Speaking of, I got to be honest, and I'm with some other people on this one too. I don't know about Trevor Bauer in the bullpen. Matter of fact, Tom Hamilton yesterday, as they're warming him up and bringing him in, he's literally telling you why this may or may not be a good idea. Well, the Indians want to see if this works, and Hammy's like, thinking about the way he warms up for a game, I don't know how he can do that in the bullpen. So he's going to have to adjust everywhere. He obviously didn't make the Indians happy with his approach to spring training. I mean, he came in and they wanted him to work on throwing the ball in places where he doesn't walk everybody. He just wanted to throw it even faster and even harder than he already does. Kind of hard-headed approach to pitching this year. Talk about him being that way in the past, and there was some talk last year that he was more receptive, but obviously the Indians didn't get a lot of that this year, and they ended up not getting in the rotation, which surprised some people, not me. If you're trying to win and you want to put your best guys out there. He wasn't one, to me, the 5-man rotation. But then where do you put him? Because to me, he's not a bullpen guy unless you're going to make a Jose Mesa out of him. If you're going to just say flamethrower in the 9th inning, you're our guy. Go out there and throw 9 straight buzzers and get this thing over with. If you're doing that, that's fine. Other than that, how do you put Trevor Bauer in the bullpen?
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't look like a recipe for success to me. Because, like you say, here's a guy his whole thing is about the routine, the preparation, the flexibility, the stretching, the throwing, long toss. All this stuff, and it's all about this long, drawn out routine. Days off, and it's a starting pitcher's routine, not a reliever's routine. Reliever has to be able to turn on a dime. I've always, as far as not being in the rotation, Jerry, he's a guy who led the American League in walks a year ago. That's all you really need to say. Led the American League in walks. You can't do that and have success as a starting pitcher.
And what's the first thing he did yesterday? First thing he did yesterday, walked a guy.
Yeah. And so I understand that this year he came in, and I don't think it was strictly a Trevor Bauer wants to put a couple miles an hour on his fastball. I think the organization was well with him on the effort to, increase the velocity, and they said he was sitting at 94, 95, touching 96 with the fastball this year, which is great. Last start before the season started, he went 6-7 innings, didn't walk a batter, struck out several. I think, okay, well, maybe we're getting somewhere. Maybe we're, getting some command and control. Well, I don't know what the dynamics are personality-wise and whether he gets along with Callaway or if he gets along with Frank Conner or he gets along with his teammates. I have no idea about that. He seems like a little bit of a loner-type guy. But again, that's me sitting there looking at it from afar. Obviously, there's something there where they felt, and I heard Antonetti talking about it the other day, basically saying, it's sort of like it's not you, it's me line. This is, it has nothing to do with Trevor Bauer. It has more to do with Cody Anderson. It has more to do with rewarding what we saw from Anderson in terms of solid performance down the stretch a year ago. He went like 7-2 in the last 2 months of the season, and then reworked his body in the off season, worked hard. They all talked about the hard work, the effort that he put into it. Maybe they don't see similar effort from Trevor Bauer despite all the, histrionics. So it's a way to reward the guy that they think gives them a better shot to win every fifth day. And, if that's the call, more power to them. But, yeah, I think, we heard the trade rumors before the season, the Texas trade rumors when we were down there for 2 games. That didn't happen, but that may yet happen. But it isn't going to happen, and you're not going to get a lot for him if you keep running them out there and it keeps giving up faders late in games.
Yeah, I agree, because that is going to damage his trade value. My thought with putting him in the bullpen was that they were simply buying time. They didn't want to send him down because that just kills his trade value there. It gives away that you don't have, a place for him. But I'm thinking, okay, they're going to wait a couple of weeks, and they're going to bring him with the pen, and they're going to hope that he doesn't do anything to hurt his value, because they want to make sure you got to get through the rotation a couple of times. You got to make sure that everybody's, because, you end up with the first 10 days, 2 weeks like you did last year, all of a sudden you lose a guy, you lose another guy, you bump a start, all those things that happen in the early part of the season. You get weather and all of that. So my thoughts coming out of camp was they've got to be hoping to just sit tight, let other teams' rotations start getting some injuries in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season here, and then they go back to these teams that they were talking to in the spring and go, let's make something happen now.
Yeah, that's true. And I think because we all remember last year when you and I sat here all spring and talked about how wonderful it is to have all this starting pitching depth. Salazar goes down, and when I say down to the minors,
right?
We're a month into the season last year, Jerry, and we're looking around wondering who the heck we're going to have start every fifth day, because our starting pitching depth just went to hell in a handbasket right away. And so it can happen, and it could happen again this year when we're patting ourselves on the back again for all this depth that we have with presumably with Cody Anderson and Josh Tomlin, and then they love this Mike Clevenger too down to AAA, and they've got some other guys on there, Plutko, and the guys that they think can come up and pitch at the big league level right now. So, we'll see. Depth is fleeting; it can go away in a hurry.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, too. I'm not going to get into breaking down anything. I mean, you guys have 3-4 at-bats on the season. The first game, other than that, is what it is. It did stink, and I just mean from the way I know you and I know the way this fan base is, and boy, did I hate to see Napoli and Davis both strike out 3 times in their first game. I'm like, boy, that's going to keep the Swisher and Bourne fans real quiet here as they embark on this new veterans that come in and they go, oh, here's these two, and bad first start. But other than that, there's a reason they play a whole long season. But that was definitely not a good. In general, the Tribe looked very undisciplined at the plate yesterday.
Yeah, that they did. Roger Davis almost hit the ball over the right fielder's head at one point in the game, and they had some decent swings. But yeah, you're right. As on balance, they did not look good at the plate, and you can just chalk that up to Mr. Price, I suppose, and
I think so.
And move on to game 2.
Absolutely, move on to game 2, and the season has begun. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll tell you what, Marlon Byrd, it's one game, but he looks like he's definitely, and I think that's a function. He's looking good at the plate. I think it's a function of how he knew that he had to rush. He had to cramp his own personal training down because he was rushing into a camp and trying to make a team with about, what do you have, 2-3 week window to make the team. So perhaps that might have, he might be kind of locked in there, which is good for the Tribe to start the season, especially because they're going to need to make up some of that offense missing for the first couple weeks with Michael Brantley.
Yeah, no doubt. And really it's weird that you're looking at the lineup this year already, and last year we were so left-handed heavy, and this year, minus Brantley, you've got Jason Kipnis and a couple switch hitters. Chisenhall's not there, Brantley's not there, and all this left-handed stick that you had a year ago, where you were so heavily weighted that way, just not there. Meanwhile, you're throwing out, Napoli and Davis, and your switch hitters, obviously Lindor and Santana, and your outfielders basically hitting from the right side, Cowgill, and you're basically right now Gomes, of course. You're now a heavily right-handed team, at least until Brantley and/or Chiz gets back.
All right, Dan. Well, the Indians' long season has just begun. 161 more of these, and probably about 30 more opportunities for us to break them down over the next 6 months. That'll be a lot of fun. But as that long season has just begun, the basketball one is finally winding down. And I'm sure in Golden State and in Cleveland, they're both feeling the same way about that one. 4 games left in this thing. And you know what? Before we talk about our Cavs, I want to talk about Golden State because they're on my mind still. They brought it up in the news break there, but after such a historic season, and you and I have kind of been following them in our conversations here, they've lost 2 of their last 3, and it's so funny. I once again did it. Guys, if you don't believe that I'm the curse of death to any of these teams, then all you have to do is start keeping a journal of the people that I promote as I say who's going to win and lose, and then watch them lose. I think I did in North Carolina. I think I'm the one that did them. And as I look here, we were just talking about how the Cavs have been losing to bad teams sometimes, and they don't play up to the level they should. And we were discussing whether Golden State has that same tendency. 2 of the last 3 games they've played, they've lost to bad teams. They lost to a young Boston team, which isn't a horrible team. They're just a young team. And then they lost last night in overtime to Minnesota. And how about that? When they got Curry for traveling with 20-some seconds left, I said, man, that's the mistake that's going to let Minnesota take this thing into overtime. And sure enough, they did. So now the Warriors have to win out. And I was wondering, regardless if they win out and get the 72, 73, whatever, whichever their final record is, what do you think about the team? Because we hear all this rest in Cleveland, and we got to get our guys rest and get them ready to hit the playoffs fresh. Do you think it's good or bad to be in the position that Golden State is being, especially when you look at them in San Antonio, who they're probably going to come against in the West. San Antonio's doing the resting and they're getting ready for the playoff thing, but Golden State put themselves in a record-setting position, and they locked themselves into committing to trying, they had to at that point, to try to get the record, which means you got to go full tilt 82 games down the stretch. You think that's good or bad? I think you could hit the playoffs hot, or you have expended a lot of energy to get to that point. I guess it's a coin flip which way you look at it.
It really is a coin flip, Jerry, because obviously on the one side you can say, well, because you're going for this record, you're going out there every night understanding the importance of each individual game, and your focus and your concentration is good. At the same time, on the other side of it, you're not resting regulars. You're not, working on little things, little aspects of your game maybe that you might, be doing with maybe even an opponent or two specifically in mind for the playoffs. You're not orienting your mind and your game plans to the playoffs because you're concentrating on trying to beat the, Chicago Bulls of 3 decades ago. Right. So yeah, it could be a blessing and a curse. I think I just hope that it hurts them one way or another. I don't really care. I want them to. I would now at this point, and I know you don't want to see them break the record because of your affinity for the Bulls, but I know it doesn't keep you up at night either. But right now it looks like probably I don't think they're going to beat the Spurs twice in the last 4 games.
No way.
I don't think they're going to go down to San Antonio and win a game. So the other 3 games, 2 of them are against Memphis. Memphis is terrible. They can beat the Cavs, but they can't beat the Warriors.
I agree.
Memphis is awful. They don't have any players left, and 2 of their games are against Memphis and 2 against the Spurs. So, could they go 3-1, tie the record? 3-1 would tie the record. That's likely to happen. I guess you'd have to say that's probably the most likely scenario. Frankly, I don't care. I just hope that coin flip thing that we're talking about ends up on the side of the coin that hurts their chances. And also, they just had a brutal game with the Jazz the other day, and
they just survived that one. Yeah.
Looks like the Jazz are going to be their first round opponent. At least if the season ended today, they would be.
And that would be a tough draw.
That's not going to be an easy series for them either. So, you've already called the Spurs into the finals. So, I guess maybe we're talking about moot points here, but. If they tie the record, fine. That'll be something that goes away, and people are forgetting about that in a fairly short time as the playoffs get underway. But again, I've got no love for the Golden State Warriors, and I'd like to see them go down. And frankly, I think I might even rather see the Cavs play the Spurs in the finals if it comes to that. So, but we got our own situation to worry about even getting to the finals. So. But it has been encouraging, like you said, the last several games, because if for no other reason, then Kevin Love is shooting very well. Kyrie Irving is starting to shoot the ball back at the level that we know he can. And J.R. Smith is just hotter than a firecracker.
Oh, yes, he is. To wrap up the West, I think the way that schedule works out is pretty sweet if you're a basketball fan, because either way it goes, either the record's going to be set or stopped at the expense or the behest of the San Antonio Spurs, and then a few weeks from now, those 2 teams are going to meet in whatever round of the playoffs. I don't know wherever the brackets are going to wind up, probably in the conference finals. But then you'll have like that backstory of, whether the Spurs stopped the history or did the Warriors make history on the back of the Spurs, and then they're in the final. That's great drama for the Western Conference and seeing who comes out. And as you said, I've got the Spurs. And by the way, if you're into the whole odds thing, they have, according to the BPI projections as of everything, they have a 56% chance to tie the record, 14% chance to break it, and they have a 46% chance to reach the NBA Finals and a 40% chance being given to the Spurs or to the Warriors to be the next NBA champion. So we'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. And as you said, flip over to the Cavs. I'm not going to sit here and just jump to the front of the bandwagon. I still have a lot of questions about what kind of team we're going to see game to game once we get into the playoffs and we're playing the same teams and all of that. And Ty Lue, I have questions about how, and he may do great, but I have questions on how he's going to coach in the playoffs. Clearly, LeBron James has taken his game to that level that we saw last year in the playoffs. He's going out there. And see, let me jump in. Before we talk anything else, everybody knows about me and LeBron and the way I feel. This is one of my problems with LeBron in the past, and he's doing what I want him to do in the last couple of weeks, which is do it. Do it. Don't tell us you're the best player in the NBA. Don't tell your teammates that you know how to win championships and they need to follow you, and then meander your way along the path. If you want to teach these kids, if you want them to shut up and follow you, you do what LeBron's done for the last couple of weeks. And the other guys, you have no choice but to sit there and go, damn, he came to play tonight. And I think that kicking into that mode early was a smart move for him, because that is how you lead by example. You don't, and we talked about this last year, you and I, Dan, you don't say, hey, you got to try harder. My thing was reach down and show them how to do it. Don't just stick your nose in the air and say, well, when you get to my level, then we can try this together. And this is what I've seen him do. And he is going and getting it the last couple of weeks. He's been the NBA Player of the Week for, I think, 3 or 4 of the last 5 weeks, Player of the Month 2 months in a row, getting into playoff mode. But it's beyond him. He can't win it himself, as we've seen before. Kevin Love, unbelievable night last night. If they had let him play, he may have scored 50 points the way he was rolling last night. He was getting rebounds. He was playing just the way you like to see Kevin Love play. J.R. Smith went to work, set the Cavaliers' season record for three-pointers in a season. J.R. Smith is looking like a guy that can really contribute come playoff time. Those are the things that need to happen for the Cavs to do as well as they've done. But I also still question, are they beating up like the Bucks game? The Cavs played great, and that is a hell of a game to look at the clips and go, this is awesome. But they also played it played out par to the course for how it should have. They dominated that three-point game against a team that's awful defending the three. So while I look for the good in everything, part of me hedges my bets, and you don't want to get too starstruck into being great in the situations where you should be, and that's why I want to see when we get into the playoffs, when we get into the meat of real back-to-back strategic battles in these games, let's see what they can do.
Yeah, that's true. But one of the things that is encouraging to me, even last night, what we've seen for the last several weeks with the inconsistency, is see the Cavs come out, blitz into the first quarter and build up a big lead, 15, 18, 19, 20-point leads, and then blow that entire lead.
Yeah.
Sometimes twice a game, build a big lead, blow it. And second unit sometimes just comes in, and when you've got, Fry and RC and Deli and these other guys' second unit on the court, they have a hard time scoring. Last night, even the fourth quarter was one of the ugliest quarters of NBA basketball I've ever seen. I think it was 13-13 was the score in the fourth quarter last night. Ugly. But the Cavs obviously had a 25-point lead and playing out the string. But what they didn't do in the last couple of games when they built those big leads, they didn't give them up. They kept the hammer down, if you will, and did not let the other team back in the game. Third quarter started with a 24-point lead yesterday. It ended with a 26-point lead. So there was no relaxation. There was no comeback. Now, the Cavs have 4 games left. All 4 of them are against playoff or playoff contending teams. Yep. In fact, one of the 4 games, we don't know which one yet, but we know that one of the 4 will definitely be against their first-round opponent, because they have a game with the Pacers and the Pistons. They're currently 7-8. And they have a game with the Bulls, currently the first team, sitting at number 9.
First out, yeah.
First team out. So we know that one of these last 4 games is going to be against their first-round opponent, the fourth one being, of course, the Hawks game, the number 3 seed right now, and possibly a future opponent. So we'll see how it plays out against the teams that they know they're going to have to beat soon and beat 4 out of 7 soon. And just see how this playoff tune-up shapes up. But one thing we can certainly say, and it certainly appears to be the case, and that is it is a playoff tune-up. They know it's a playoff tune-up, and they're playing like it's a playoff tune-up.
Man, who do you want to play there at the bottom? I'm just curious your thoughts. And by the way, Chicago is 2 games back with 4 to play, so they're in a very precarious position. They've pretty much got to win out here to give themselves a chance to overtake one of those teams, because Indiana and Detroit are sitting there right above them, and there's a half a game separating them, so that could go any way, like you said. Which one? I don't know. I'll be honest. I think I'd rather play the Pistons. I mean, the Pacers... I like the Pacers, and I think they can play, especially in a series. I think the Pacers, at least for the first few games, could play the Cavs really tough. Paul George is always a great matchup there, and he brings something. I don't know. I like the Pacers. George Hill, they do some good things over there, but the Pistons got the presence down in the post, and they've got some young scorers and stuff. So I don't know. Which would you think would be a more favorable matchup for the Cavs?
I'm not sure, Jerry, but I think I'd rather play either one of those 2 teams than the Bulls.
Bulls, yeah.
I'm glad to see the Bulls drop out, and they've been getting some heavy criticism for just kind of giving up a little bit early and cashing it in. I guess maybe I'd rather play the Pistons. I think they just probably have 1 or 2 fewer playmakers, game changer types of players. And with Hill and George on the Pacers, that's a pretty tough 1-2 punch, and they've got some size as well. So yeah, I guess maybe I'd rather play the Pistons, because you've got a couple great outside shooters on that team, and you've got Drummond, who's just a beast. But I guess if I had to take a one or the other, I'd look at the Pistons as the better matchup for us.
Yeah, there's a yin and a yang to both. The Pistons are the hottest team coming into the playoffs of those bottom seeds. They've won 7 of their last 10. But the Pacers of the bottom 4 seeds are the best defensive team of those 4 as far as points given up. So you're probably facing a separate set of challenges with either one. Like you said, Drummond, I wouldn't want to mess with that. Either way, to me, the Bulls would be the team capable of beating up the Cavaliers the most in the first round. Whether they won a series or not doesn't matter. The other 2 teams, not nearly as much. And I'm definitely glad for the rise in the last few weeks of the Boston Celtics, because that was a team that, again, I also didn't want anything to do with early on in this thing. So as it looks now, I'll tell you what, how about that? That young Boston team went from scrapping their way into the playoffs last year and then going through that series with the Cavs where they were pretty much stomped out, but took out Kevin Love in the process. They're a home court team. Well, they may end up a home court team. They're right there with Miami, tied between 4th and 5th, but they may end up one of the top 4 seeds in the East this year.
Yeah, and I just have a great admiration for what Stevens has done with that team.
Yeah.
They are a great defensive team. I love watching that team play defense. They are what the Cavs were doing a year ago. They put the clamps on the Warriors. They put the clamps on the Cavs.
Yeah.
Last couple times they played, they just play great D. And I don't know how Stevens does it, but he's got those guys bought in. And they do not have the greatest talent, as you know, Jerry. They're playing. Isaiah Thomas really come into his own this year as an NBA talent. But let's face it, they do not have the talent that some of the teams on either side of them in the standings are rolling out there every night.
But you know what?
They're doing it.
Did you know this?
With mirrors.
Did you know Boston's the highest scoring team in the Eastern Conference?
I did not know that. I'm looking at the
Cavaliers
right
are
now,
second.
105 points a game.
Yeah, they score a point and a half a game more than the Cavs on average this season. I mean, they are the highest scoring team. Obviously, their defense is 5 points worse than the Cavs, but I mean, that's I would have never guessed. I'd have lost that bet if you'd asked me who was the top scoring team in the East. I'd have never picked Boston.
Yeah, me neither. I just admire what he's done. Taking a group of guys that don't have all that much talent, and he just got them playing great. So more power to him, and wouldn't mind seeing them in the playoffs, because I think we'll stomp them again. But they have fire, and they play hard. And plus,
I'll tell you what.
They got a couple Buckeyes on that team, and that makes them easier to like. With Eric Turner, not Eric Turner, but and Jared Sullinger.
Evan Turner, yeah. I'll tell you what, the thing that I talked about this weeks ago, and now that I look at these standings, I'm more worried than ever about the second round of the playoffs for the Cavs. I'm not worried about the first, and I'm not worried about the third. But it looks like the Cavs are going to have either Boston or Miami waiting for them in the second round of the playoffs. And to me, either one of those teams is capable of upsetting the Cavs if the Cavs don't play at their best.
Yeah, I think you're right. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, the Heat especially. And the Celtics have, the Celtics are, neither is a very good road team. They're both 500 road teams. But both teams obviously capable of coming in here and swiping one in Cleveland and putting a lot of pressure on the Cavs.
Yep, and then, talk about the scoring on Boston. It's the opposite for Miami. They're like the best defensive team in the Eastern Conference, second best behind the Cavs scoring-wise. And to me, that's deceptive because the Cavs' average is propped up by the defense they played in the first half of the season when they led the league, because they have been much more in the bottom third in this last stretch because they're much more concerned about the offensive side of the board here. And that'll be interesting, too, because as we've seen, you talk about when they have 2 13-point quarters against the Bucks. When they want to play defense, they do. And that's going to be the key to the Cavs. It's not how many points they score, man. It's how they keep the other team off the boards. That's going to be the key, especially the way they've been playing. And then LeBron, I'll give him his credit. He's been dominating the game. I mean, that's what you do. When you want to be called the best player in the game, when you want to be held up there, when you want a lifetime Nike contract, those are the things that come with that, not showing up from time to time and then spending the rest of the time talking about it. That's what you want to see. And that's where, hey, I'll shut up. I can say nothing. You can tweet 24 hours a day when you're playing ball like that.
Yeah, that's true, and your point's well made too. That when you're at that point and you're at the level of superstardom, that people don't want to hear you talk it. You want to see you walk it, and so the fact that he's doing that and rolling out every night, his attitude is great. I've noticed even the last several games, he's not even doing the whining. I don't think the Cavs get treated very well by NBA officials in general.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably a very good reason for that. I don't think any other team whines half as much as they do. There's rarely a call that gets made when J.R. Smith or Delly or Love doesn't do it as much, or LeBron is not up in the official's face
the whole way down the floor,
walking over to him to get an explanation. Kyrie does the same thing. If I were an NBA official, I would be, by this point in the season, I'd be dead sick of it. And I would be not giving them the benefit of the doubt on calls, and I think that's what's happening. But I have noticed LeBron maybe back off a little bit, just sort of nodding his head, going on with it, even when he continues to get hammered when he goes to the rim and rarely gets a call. Does certainly not get the superstar treatment. I don't think ever has in his NBA career, really, gotten that treatment. And it bothers him sometimes. He rolls his eyes. He gets angry. He scowls. He occasionally picks up a technical because he says something to the official. But I think maybe he's letting a little bit of that slide now, even though I don't think it's happening any less. I just think he's not letting it get to him.
And that's important. That's something else that bugged the hell out of him. Not just me, but a lot of us. And that's, again, the example, as you said, it wasn't just him. He's done it for his whole career. But when you start seeing the whole team doing it, you're going, man, come on. And like I said, if I'm the other teams, that is in my scouting report when I play the Cavs. Get cheap buckets after makes and misses against the Cavs, because that's the one place where they're susceptible. If one or two guys turn their head to whine, you're 5-on-3, 5-on-4, pushing it down the court, and especially a team that moves at the speed of Golden State or with the precision of the San Antonio Spurs. That's a huge advantage that those teams have. Quick question for you as we wrap up the Cavs. Because I was surprised at whose name it was. J.R. Smith set the Cavaliers record. The Cavs, by the way, as a team, tied the NBA record with last year's Golden State team. Most consecutive games in a row making 10 or more three-pointers. They're now at 16 consecutive games in a row making 10 three-pointers or more. I mean, they live and die by it. When they live by it, they're hard to beat. When they don't, they're in trouble. But J.R. Smith went 7 for 11. He set the Cavs record at 197 three-pointers and counting for the season. Whose record did he break? Because I was surprised by who it was.
Well, if you were surprised, then it's probably not Bingo Smith or World Be Free.
Nope.
So I'm trying to think who else it might be. Mark Price, maybe.
You'll never get it. Because it's somebody.
Well, then lay it on me.
It's somebody you don't even remember played really for the Cavaliers. Wesley Person, 1997, 1998 season. He scored 192 threes for the Cavs and set the franchise record at that time. And I think the record he broke would have been probably one of those names or Mark Price that you mentioned before. But, I mean, who even remembers that Wes Person played for the Cavs, you know?
Not this guy. Not this guy, Jerry.
I didn't either. I was shocked. I wrote that down. I said, I got to ask Dan because he'll never guess it because I wouldn't even have remembered that he played for the Cavs, let alone set a record.
No recollection of that, really.
And they won't be in the future because that record has now been erased and it's held by J.R. Smith. So he will forever be laying down the pipe when it comes to the three-pointers here in Cleveland for some time. And what's crazy is he just set the Cavs record, and what Steph Curry's got like double the number of three-pointers that Smith's got. I think Smith's got 200 and Curry's at like 400 and counting or something.
That is amazing.
He scored more three-pointers as an individual this season than any team has ever made, I believe.
I know that some time ago he passed, several, whole teams combined.
Yeah, it's
the
ridiculous.
Totals of several entire teams.
It's insane what he's done. It's absolutely insane. That's the one play. And I don't like Steph Curry because he chews on that stupid mouthpiece all the time. But, I mean, when you're witnessing greatness, you got to remember that because, again, we'll be talking about these things 20 years from now. Like, hey, I saw it when it happened. So we'll see. Cavs got 4 left, and then playoffs start. Going to be a lot of fun. Hey, real quick, Dan, before I let you go here, just a couple of things. I want to talk about the not a lot, but what did you think? The Browns continuing the purge here of the veteran guys as they cut Dante Whitner the other day. It surprised me only because, number one, I think he was only halfway through the big contract that they signed him to, but more because Carlos Dansby was saying the same thing. They didn't do it before. I figured any of the veterans that were still on the Browns after a month of free agency were probably good to go, at least until you get, maybe if you come to camp and the guy's out of shape or something like that. But I thought that was kind of maybe a little bit shady only because the big free agency rush starts on that first day and you've kind of set Dante Whitner really behind the A-ball as far as going out there and marketing himself. But, I mean, it didn't hurt Dansby. He went to Cincinnati, and he'll be relishing the chance to play against the Browns next year, I'm sure. But what did you think? I just wondered why they waited a month and then cut the guy loose.
Well, maybe it has to do with the way that they're setting up their draft board, Jerry. Maybe over the last couple of weeks they've fallen in love with Jalen Ramsey or something. That's altogether possible. First of all, let me just say this. I take a backseat to no one in my fandom and admiration for the Glenville Tarbloodler, the Ohio State Buckeye, the hitman, Dante Whitner. Okay? Love the kid. Always have. But let's face it, this is not like, first of all, this is not like we're breaking up the 85 Bears.
Right.
This is not like, and it's not August, Jerry, 2 weeks before we're setting our rosters for the NFL season. This idea that you waited too long. He's a free agent. He can sign with anybody he wants to.
Yeah.
It's not like NFL teams have their rosters all set pre-draft in early April. That if they wanted to squeeze Dante Whitner onto their roster, where he's likely to be, let's face it, some team's 49th man on a 53-man roster, I think Dante Whitner's had a nice NFL career. I would not be a bit surprised if Dante Whitner is not playing in the NFL next year. He's expensive. He's old. He's in a young man's position. He, has had a nice career, but I think that possibly 32 NFL teams might just pass on the guy.
Hey, what?
We'll see. I just don't know that. I think right now he's a marginal NFL talent as much as I've loved him, as much as I've supported him. I don't think this is a big deal. And I don't think cutting a guy in the first week of April is waiting too long when the season starts in September.
No, and I hear you. Financially, I get the point of, maybe a position of certain leverage. But I'm with you as far as the player we're talking about. I think Carlos Dansby, to me, is much more valuable in free agency than Dante Whitner. And he only got a 1 year? Yeah, what did he get? 1 year, $2 million, $2.5 million from Cincinnati to go play for
He'll help them because he's just a hell of a player. And he's still got a lot in the tank.
Right, he's
Carlos
got it in the tank. From the football side, bro, they couldn't have cut Dante Whitner fast enough for me from the football side of it because, as we talked about last season, to me, he was a big problem with the Browns' defense.
Exactly.
He was throwing
and I think other teams have game film, too, they can watch. I just don't think Dante Whitner's a hot property in the NFL circles, and I think the fact that he was cut late instead of 2 weeks earlier, does not have 31 football executives around the league saying, damn, I wish we'd known 2 weeks ago Dante Whitner was going to be available. Just don't see that happening.
No, I agree with you there. I mean, again, I saw the point of if there was a market, because that I do agree. If there's a market and then some teams have certain resources and then they use them somewhere else, I get it. But where you're at, and I'm totally with you, is, and I think that'll be interesting to watch come August, if and where Dante, even if he signs with a team in the meantime, does he stick with them, or is he one of those late veteran cuts when it comes to training camp this season? Because I'm with you. I mean, he wouldn't make tackles last year, shied away from so much of that. Even though he likes to hit, a lot of times he leaned on that. He went for the hit and didn't make the tackle and cost the Browns. Not that they were winning that many games without him, but he definitely was not helping them at all. And
the other thing, Jerry, is this, and you know better than I right off the top of your head probably. The terms of his contract with the Browns, it was 4 years. It was how much money?
Oh,
do you happen to know that?
It was
close
high.
To 4 years, $30 million or something.
I thought it was 20 something, but yes, absolutely.
So it was in the neighborhoods of $6, $7, $8 million a year, right? Times 4, and
he was making $6 million a year, and this year and next year he was going to make 6.2 and 6.3.
$6 million a year for a over 30 safety in the NFL. If he makes somebody's roster, it ain't going to be in the neighborhood of $6 million a year.
You got that right, brother.
And so, no matter what happens, if he is fortunate enough to catch on, obviously he and his family will never have to work a day in their lives again if they don't want to, for the next 4 or 5 generations of Whitners, if they come to pass. But, nobody's going to be paying him anything close to that kind of money this year if he's even on an NFL roster. So, love you, Dante, but I'm fresh out of sympathy.
It's funny. You sounded like me talking to my son, too. We were driving around the other day talking about something, and he was, he just likes to bring, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And he was asking me about the Browns and everybody leaving. And I said, son, we're not exactly tearing apart the 85 Bears here, man. Let me explain something to you. When they all go 5-11 every year, you can trade them out for a whole bunch of other guys that go 5-11. I said, we always talk about being rebuilt here in Cleveland, but where we've gotten it up the rear end is that we've never actually been rebuilt. They retool, they add pieces around other pieces. They put square pegs in round holes, and they end up with taking two. I said, take the Browns and imagine, you get 5 different jigsaw puzzles and you pour all the pieces on the table and try to put them all together and make one big puzzle. Of course it's not going to work. I said, but I'll do it, you'll do it, Browns fans will do it. They say, man, we've been rebuilding since 99. And I say, no, actually, that's the problem. We've never actually rebuilt this thing. We've tried to fix it in motion, and you can't fix You especially can't fix this in motion. But the Browns have been unable to do that. Had you had stability at the top, maybe you could have, because you have a single-minded view of changing it, but it didn't happen. So this is the first actual rebuild that any of you Browns fans are going through, whether you realize it or not. They've called the other ones rebuilds, but they weren't. They never had the balls to do it the right way because they didn't want to look the fans in the face and say, we're wiping it clean. They'll half wipe it clean. Now they're finally ripping the Band-Aid off. The problem is nobody trusts if they can put it back on the right way.
Yeah, nobody trusts that the doctor they got in charge didn't get a degree somewhere in Mexico. But, anyway,
community college up on the wall, you know.
Just as we were talking, I was trying to think of all the free agent safeties that were signed in the all-important free agency period in March.
Was that none?
I can think of one.
Gibson.
Eric Weddle.
Gibson, right?
Oh, Tayshaun Gibson, yeah. But Eric Weddle is really, another guy of consequence. I think he might have signed with the Ravens.
Yeah, the Browns tried to sign him. He was going to...
Sure, they did. And that's the other thing when people criticize the Browns. Hey, free agent means free. Means the guy can sign with whoever he wants to. Amazing that they sometimes pick other teams than your team. But
especially this team.
I don't think the team that signed Tayshaun Gibson, I don't even know who that was.
Jaguars.
Jaguars. The Jags and the team that signed Eric Weddle,
Ravens,
are kicking themselves this morning when they find out that Dustin Whitner got cut.
Yeah.
Because, geez, we would have rather had him. And that's my only point. I don't mean to beat it up. But that it's 4 months, 5 months till we start the season, and plenty of time for those teams to jump on Dante if they have an opening on their squad.
No, you're absolutely right about that, man. And we're getting closer. By the way, what do we got? 3 weeks, 3.5.
3 weeks till draft day.
Right?
Yeah, April 28th. Thursday is day one.
All right, so I'll tell you what, man. How about next week? Why don't we talk about the Browns' potential draft picks a little bit, and we'll know who the Cavs most likely. We may not know for sure, but we may know by Monday who the Cavs will have in the first round of the playoffs, and we'll get to see a few more Tribe games. So we'll have plenty of things to talk about.
That sounds good. Sometime between now and then, let's you and I get down to the ballpark too and make something happen there.
Oh, absolutely. Go catch a game. We were going to be able to do that on Monday, and everything fell through, but we'll definitely do it again here in the early part of the season.
Sounds good, J-Rocc. I'll catch up to you next week.
You got it. That's my man, Dan Wismar. You guys can check him out. EverybodyHatesCleveland.com. As always, great stuff going on from Dan, and he'll be back with me. We'll be back short week, and we'll be back on Monday, live, noon. Same bat time, same bat channel, baby. Do it. My man Bruce in the chat room winds up the show with, rather be drafted by the Army than drafted by the Browns. Funny stuff. The Indians getting ready to get back out there here. Carlos Cookie Carrasco takes the mound for the Indians. Tonight's one of them cool nights. Hey, we're about to hit that time where we got Tribe baseball happening, Cavs playoff basketball at the same time. Tribe gets started tonight at, what are they going, 6:10 first pitch tonight? Cavs 7 o'clock as they stagger it there a little bit for the two teams. Double dose of Cleveland sports tonight. Enjoy it. We'll be back Monday talking Cavs playoff run, talking Indians first week of the season, start previewing the Browns draft and more with Dan Wismar, you, me. Who else will be here? Who knows? You got to come here and find out. Monday, live, noon, right here on the Sports Fix. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here Monday, live on the Fix.
Streets, we hustle, don't sleep out here in Cleveland, Cleveland, Cleveland.
Okay, now here we go. Welcome to the Cleveland Show, but this ain't no cartoon. Reality is all we know. You're tuning in to Bravo. Yeah, you hear me everywhere, but it's only one of me. Let me make that very clear. Yeah, I'm from that terminal. You can see the lake from here. Faith in my teams, we keep getting closer every year. But we got the king, though, so hopefully we overcome. Yes, I have a dream, and I know I ain't the only one. Armadale tried to steal my heart, but we brought it back. Thanks to Cleveland Clinic, now they call them kids to cardiac. Rock Cars, Science Center, Tower City, all of that. Warehouse District, Euclid Corridor, and all the flat. You know that I'm a Tribes fan, and I love sliming. Crockett Park's the perfect place for me to spend some time in. Baby, this is Cleveland. It is so much more to us. You can even go to Severance Hall to see an orchestra.
Hey. Cleveland, we rep our city.
Yeah.
Blue lights separate the grind from the gritty. We're sick-fitted. Hood pass cover any city that we visit. Winnie up on Cleveland. Survival's a must on these streets. We hustle, don't sleep out here in Cleveland.